Welcome to the Freedom Founder Podcast. I'm your host, Zach Duggar. And today I have a guest with me. His name is Dai Manuel. Now, I want to ask a quick question of the audience before we get started. Have you ever found yourself externally experiencing what others will perceive as success in your ventures, your business, your life, your relationships, but internally, you're not feeling that same alignment with what others are perceiving outwardly? Now, what I mean by that is an example. If you're working in a business and you're successful in your role and you're climbing that corporate ladder, or you've started something that you've created successfully, and now others are coming to you and saying, man, you're doing awesome. You're really kicking it. But internally, you're experiencing stress and turmoil. If that's you, then, you know, a little bit of that can be related to the story we're going to talk about today. So I'm going to introduce my guest here, Dai Manuel. Some of the introduction here, I know it's going to resonate with you. Dai is a super dad. He's dating his wife. I love that description. He leads by example, living a life with a contagious personality. He's on a mission to positively impact 1 million role models around the globe to lead a functionally fit life through education, encouragement, and community. He's also award-winning digital thought leader and author, distinguished Toastmaster and keynote speaker, former partner and chief operating officer of a multi-million-dollar retail company. And he's also a sought-after mentor and executive performance coach. He knows the struggle of the juggle and keeping his health and happiness a priority, and he models his work based on 5 F's: fitness, family, faith, finances, and an overarching roof of fun, built on a rock-solid foundation of health. Now, I know he's going to deliver some nuggets of wisdom today, so let's get into the conversation. Welcome, Dai.
Thank you, Zach. This is so cool to be here, man. I've been looking forward to this follow-up conversation because when we connected a number of weeks ago, I was buzzing the whole day, man. I was just loving our connection, our conversation, because I know we share a lot of similar, not only interests and passions, but it's incredible when we start opening up about our stories. We realize, gosh, we are so much more alike with our fellow human beings than we are different. If we would just
Yeah,
take the time to just simply ask and listen, right? So it's
absolutely.
an honor to be here, man.
Absolutely. And, I would have just watched your TEDx talk on vulnerability yesterday, and I really, that
Thank you.
comment you just made there resonates with that. And so for those
Mm.
listening to this today or down the road, I would definitely recommend you check out the TEDx talk that I did. And how would they find that? What's the name of that TEDx talk, just so that we can, I'll
Oh,
also add it
yeah.
in the show notes. But
So it's why vulnerability is a human thing.
there it is.
So that's what it's called. If you just look it up, if you can actually spell my name correctly, you'll find me. But I've also got it posted on my Instagram account. So if people go to Dai Manuel on
Perfect.
Instagram, it's all there.
Perfect. Perfect. I appreciate that. I know that will
Thank you.
definitely resonate with some others as well. So now, I always like to talk about the conversation of entrepreneurship and
Mm.
how things got started for individuals like yourself. So,
Mm.
as you got into starting a small business, and even if the mindset and thought about starting a small business, how did that come about for you
Mm.
and your journey?
Well, it wasn't a huge leap. And what I mean by that is I grew up seeing my parents. Well, my dad ran his own practice with a
Okay.
business partner, and they grew it to quite a size. He was
Yep.
in veterinary medicine, and him and his business partner both graduated school, started their own practice, and eventually got to the point where they had, I think, 11 full-time vets working for them. So
Wow.
to give you
Yeah.
an idea on the size of the practice. Now, that was a
Yep.
lifelong endeavor for him, but I got to watch
Yep.
him do that. And my mom always had a side hustle.
Okay.
Like Airbnb, or sorry, not Airbnb, like bed and breakfast. I'm assuming, man, the
Yep.
brand, none of the Airbnb, bed and
Right.
breakfast, antique store. I mean, gosh, interior decorating. She always had something going on the side, and so
Yeah.
entrepreneurship is something I grew up just being around.
Yep.
So there was always an attraction to that. And so I guess when I got into the fitness industry in my late teens, and as I sort of went into my early 20s, I started to realize that my passion for fitness was somewhat limiting.
Yep.
And the reason being is, it's a direct exchange of hours for dollars as a personal trainer. And also dating myself, I'm 46 now. So I've been in the fitness space for 28 years. People can do
Okay.
math. And back then, it's as I tell my kids, they're like, why didn't you just Google how to do stuff, Dad? I was like, because I'm older than Google, you know? So,
Right.
so all that being said, we didn't have all the tools and resources we do today to venture into being more as an online entrepreneur. So
Yeah.
back then I was trading hours for dollars until
Yeah.
one day I got a job selling fitness equipment, and it
Okay.
was performance based commission. And I was
Yeah.
like, remember going in through the interview with the manager, and I'm like, so wait. I got to ask you a question here. So you're telling me the more people I help get healthy and fit using this kind of products, the more money you'll pay me? And they're like, yep. So wait. The more people I help get results and live a better, healthier, happier life, you're going to pay me more. Yeah. I'm like, okay, I'm in.
Yeah. Right.
and I went all in. And I
Yeah.
stopped training people for hourly rates, and I started really becoming an equipment expert and giving people in-home solutions to
Yep.
be able to optimize their health and well-being using all these cool toys that I, loved because it helped me with
Right.
my own transformation. And
Right.
fast forward 17 years, I had the opportunity to get into a joint venture partnership where I was a junior partner and
Yeah.
co-founded a company. We scaled that up into 8 retail stores, a couple online divisions. So we had e-commerce all across Canada, as
Yep.
well as manufacturing overseas and import-export. So,
Yeah.
it was quite a large operation, doing 8 figures a year. And I learned a lot doing it, but until I, sort of fell out of love with the business, and
Yeah.
I changed, and we all know how that story tends to go. We got to find something new.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was what I was trying to say on the front end of this conversation is that you get that feeling. It might not be turmoil, but it might just be a change of heart, falling out of love with the business, as you just
Yeah.
described it. So you had to find something new. So what was that thing for you, or how did you then reevaluate and explore something new?
Well, to be fair, Zach, I was very content. I was very happy doing what
Yeah.
I was doing because I did get a great deal of fulfillment from it. I love seeing people get great results, especially
Right.
when people have that light bulb moment where it's like, oh, I can't, and then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, I just did that. I can
Yep.
do this, and you see that belief factor in themselves just go to a level that they didn't even think was possible.
Right.
That is the thing that kept me excited and engaged in doing what I was doing.
Yeah.
However, I went through some personal changes. To be perfectly blunt and not to go into all the details, but you did
Sure.
mention the TEDx talk. So if those that want
Yep.
more details about this backstory, go ahead, give that a listen. But the short of it was I struggled with alcohol. I
Mhm.
used alcohol really just as a habit to de-stress, to
Yeah.
open up, to deal with anxiety, to deal with stress. It was really, in a way, a mental health relief for me, and
Hmm.
it was a crutch, okay, more than anything. And
Sure.
uh, I realized, though, when I went through a massive shift myself, and this is going back, I would have been in the business for about 10 or 11 years at this point. I decided to move away from alcohol.
Yeah.
And I started as a 1 year commitment, and now it's turned into a lifestyle. 14 years later, I have yet to have a drink again. But that's not the point of this story. The point of the story is
Yeah.
when I went through that change and I really started thinking about me and what I want for my life, what I want for my family, how I'm showing up, how I want to contribute
Yep.
or make an impact, I started realizing that the path that I was on wasn't going to allow me to do that.
Sure.
And that's a scary place to be, especially when you've been in a space for 17 years full time, scaling a
Right.
business, blood, sweat, and tears, right? It's like,
Yep.
and all of a sudden I'm like, oh man, maybe this isn't what I'm meant to be doing anymore.
Yeah.
And fortunately for me, there was other things I was doing outside of work, passion projects, working and building communities and doing a lot of volunteer work and
Hmm.
really just meeting people where they're at, but also leveraging this online world that we now have access to and started creating content to serve communities, really just to
Right.
help people with no
Yep.
intentions of monetization. Okay. Like initially, there was no intention with that. I just wanted to
Right.
add value and help people.
Yep.
And after a couple of years of doing that consistently, my personal brand outgrew the corporate brand, which also created some internal conflict, okay, within our
Sure.
company, because we were spending a lot of money on marketing. And meanwhile, I didn't spend a penny on my own social media, and it was performing way better than all this money that we were spending on our
Right.
corporate. And
Right.
my partner was 20 years my senior, and just of a different era, right? So
Yep.
spending money on marketing was just how he grew up and believed that's what you do in retail. And I didn't matter what I did, I couldn't really change that tune. So
Yeah.
there was a couple kinks in the armor, and I realized, my fulfillment, my joy, my happiness, I wanted to be not so contingent on a career,
Yeah.
on an identity of me being this person in this organization, in this industry, because that was a huge part of who I believed I was.
Okay.
And that's limiting, you know?
Yep.
It is. I mean, maybe not always, but for my situation, it was. And
Yeah.
I realized I wanted to make some changes. So, I gave 18 months notice. Literally,
Uh-huh.
just it was already just gonna be a 1 year break. Going to go traveling with my family for a year. And as I got
Yep.
closer and closer to that final day, realized, if I really listen to that internal voice, it's not going to be a year. This is a goodbye. I'm done. I'm ready to
Yeah.
move on. It would be a disservice for me to come back anyways, because my heart wouldn't have been in it.
Right.
And that's where that process began. And it's now
Yeah.
7, almost 8 years later. Uh, it's wild because it's just so much has happened, but it all happened because I said,
Yeah.
you know what, enough's enough. I'm scared. I'm afraid. I'm worried about the change. But what's the worst that could happen, right?
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Take the leap. Yeah, when I titled this episode "Living Your
Mm,
Legend," came
mm,
from some information that I saw that you have shared before as well.
that's right.
I was going to add a colon and give it a little bit further clarification, but I thought I'd ask you what that means to you,
Oh.
living your legend.
Well, Zach, I so much love that reference because just a little backstory. The very first date I ever went on with my wife over 23 years ago,
Yeah.
I know a lot of people talk about bringing flowers and chocolates. Well, I brought her a book. And the book I brought
Yep.
her was The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. And
Okay.
for those that aren't aware, living your legend is really the one of the biggest messages from that book, right? And it's
Right.
this whole idea that we're all on this hero's journey. We all start from somewhere. We have these big dreams, ambitions, and visions for what we want our lives to be. And then we set off on these magical journeys at times, right? They certainly feel
Right.
magical, sometimes very
Yep.
challenging too. But
Yeah.
we set out on this journey, and inevitably we work towards achieving certain goals. And interesting enough, not to give a spoiler here or anything, but we very often find ourselves at the end of that journey, reflecting,
Yeah.
introspecting, and remembering. And we often will turn around and go back to where we began, realizing that all that happiness, that part about living your legend, actually, you could have done that without ever leaving, you
Yeah.
know, because it's more of a mental relationship that we have with our lives and the people around us, and that place of feeling joy and satisfaction and fulfillment from just being where we are, because it's always accessible.
Yeah.
Those feelings are accessible no matter where you're at. You don't have to go off on a big journey to find it.
Right.
And so how are you living your legend? And I'd be curious,
Yeah.
Zach, what's your thoughts on all that as well? Because I know you're a fan of that book as well.
Yeah. And it always makes me think of chasing others' dreams
Oh,
and
yeah.
that not being the path in which I would follow or that we should necessarily follow because
Mhm.
their dreams are going to look different than my dreams and my purpose is going to look different than their purpose. And my peace and happiness and fulfillment
Yeah,
walking out somebody else's path isn't going to be the same as if I'm walking out my own path.
yeah.
So, yeah,
I,
that's what really resonates with me.
Zach, I got to say, what you just shared there, it just triggered a memory for me, and
Yeah.
I remember distinctly the moment when I realized that the path that I was on previously, and it was a 17-year journey I
Yeah.
had set out on, right? Like, I mean, it's a
Right.
marathon
Yep.
and multiples, but I do very distinctly remember. I mentioned my partner who was 20 years my senior. He's
Right.
one of my first true mentors in life. Both in life, but more specifically in business.
Right.
And I used to always think that I wanted his life.
Hmm.
Like I always thought, well, if I keep doing this, keep working hard, that is the life I can expect to live, is just like what he's
Yeah.
doing now. And then I
Yep.
realized that it really came into focus that that was a big piece of what was motivating me. And I started thinking, wait a minute. Why do I want his life? I want my own life, you know?
Yes. Right.
And I started to realize that a lot of these internal motivations were just misdirected, you know, and
Yeah.
misinformed, and quite frankly, just immature. Like I didn't have enough life experience, and I didn't spend enough time doing the work, you know. And what I mean
Yeah.
the work is doing that clarity work, that introspective work, the life coaching type of work, you
Yeah.
know, to really answer the tough questions. And unless we make some space or time for ourselves to ask them and answer them and think about them, we'll never find an answer, right? Like, what do
Right.
I want to do? What makes me happy? What kind of impact do I want to make in this place, you know, this planet
Yeah.
of ours? And,
Right.
you know, as soon as I started to ask those questions and give myself some space to answer them, I started to realize, well, the path that I'm on, it's just not going to allow me to get there.
Right.
So change is
Yeah.
needed, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So aside from dating your wife and being a super dad, some things you're just saying right now resonate with me, and thinking about what it
Yeah.
is that you are doing now
Yeah.
that are leading you on that path to help you get to where you're seeking or wanting to go. What are you doing with your time now and pursuing that mission to impact over 1 million people, as we talked about in the introduction of this?
Well, and yeah, thank you for that intro. By the way, I know it's a bit lengthy. When I start to hear you say it, I'm like, wow, this is kind of cool. I want to hear this guy. Oh wait, that's you. You know, sometimes I forget I've done a lot of that stuff, right?
Right.
And it's amazing when you're living life and moving quickly. It just, you
Yeah.
know, it's just appreciating every moment when that happens. But once it's passed, it's like moving on. And
Right.
I really need to slow down sometimes, you know. And I think, to be fair, the last couple of years, that's what I've been doing, you know, is just
Yep.
giving myself more space to revisit some of those questions again. You know, because as much as
Yeah.
we think we get clear on some of those answers, we change. That's why I
Yep.
talk about dating my wife of 23 years. Well, why? Well, if we didn't continuously date each other, I mean, we wouldn't fall in love with the new person that we're always becoming. Like,
Sure.
because
Right.
I'll tell you, in 23 years, who she was 23 years ago and who I was 23 years ago, we're not those people anymore, you
Right.
know? And
Yeah.
but unless we had that intentional time to get to know each other and continuously get to know each other and fall in love again and again, well, you know, we know what some of those results can be. And
Yeah.
so my time now does a lot of it goes to creating content that helps people think, you
Yeah.
know, really introspect. And I do ask very specific questions often. And it's often questions that I've been asking myself or thinking about anyways. And so when I talk about wanting to inspire a million role models, it's
Yeah.
because most of us, and I'd say almost all of us, if we really think about it, and people are honest with this question, is if I ask you, what are the most effective ways that you learn? And you really think about it,
Hmm.
we'll come up with two answers: mentorship and modeling, you know, because that's how we learn.
Yeah.
We are mentored by people that maybe are a couple steps ahead on a similar journey or in a similar journey to develop a certain skill, you know,
Yeah.
or achieve a certain results. And so we get mentored or coached by those individuals to help us along on that journey. But also we can see amazing things that other people have accomplished and then try to model what they did to achieve that,
Yeah.
you know. And it's
Yeah.
through a lot of repetition, sometimes trial and error, but we
Right.
work in this progressive way to get better and better, or to achieve a result in incremental leaps and bounds, you know. And so nowadays I spend a lot of time focusing on how can I mentor, as well as what can I model through my social, through my
Sure.
everyday life, because I recognize if I'm not being an excellent demonstration, not only for my kids, for my family, for my communities, and really setting the tone, well, I'm doing a disservice to some of those other individuals that are looking to do the same, because it is a
Yeah.
sort of pay it forward mentality. We all help one another indirectly,
Yeah.
but I'm trying to be a bit more proactive with it. So that's where a lot of my time goes, is creating content that helps people go, I didn't think about that.
Right.
Let me look at my life through that lens. You know, and
Yeah.
I love seeing people get just that little spark, right? And all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, maybe this is something that I've always wanted to do that I haven't really wanted to do enough. I'm going to give it a try, you know, and
Yeah.
because I think that's what makes the world better. is this
Yep.
freedom to be able to try new things, to move into that area that we all identify that we want to do, because we're all entitled to live a life that provides us immense joy, fulfillment, and happiness. I believe everybody's entitled to that.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. And for
Mm.
those that are just listening to this as an audio podcast, they're not going to see that your title is purveyor of happiness, which I really do appreciate, because even in this conversation, the last one too, you bring joy, you bring a sense of excitement, and just it really radiates out from you. So I appreciate that and
Thanks,
what
Zach.
you're doing, and I
Kind of
think
you.
that inspiring role models to essentially be the same in their own environments in which they operate, whether it's just within their families, their
Mhm.
workplaces, their businesses, wherever it might be, that they can radiate out that positivity and the sense of, I guess, the success that they can experience in their lives, and that they can demonstrate for others and modeling.
Mhm.
So I really appreciate that.
Thanks, Zach. I appreciate that too. Thanks for saying that.
Absolutely. Now, there are a couple questions I wanted to ask. I'd
Yeah,
like to ask
please.
everyone that I speak with. So, one, if you are approached by someone who's thinking about getting into business,
Mhm.
specifically
Mhm.
starting their own business venture or journey, what are some primary tips, in brief, that you like to share with them to get them started?
Well, I really do believe in mentorship.
Okay.
So I believe finding someone that has experience in the area that you yourself are wanting to develop experience is a
Yep.
wonderful place to begin. Even just to have a discovery conversation to say, this is something I've really always wanted to do. I'm not sure how to get started. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts on this? What's your story been like? Now, fortunately, there's people that produce amazing podcasts like you, Zach. So we can sort of be flies on the wall and listen in on those kind of conversations from time
Yep.
to time to learn and to grow. But having that personal one-on-one mentor is invaluable. And I know it's done
Yeah.
me wonders in my life, both from
Absolutely.
not always a fun standpoint. Please recognize this. If you find a true mentor, someone that can help you, they're going to push your buttons too. Okay.
Yes.
And that's needed. All right.
Absolutely.
That's one. Next to that would be really getting clear on a plan, testing the waters, so to speak. And what I mean by that is, like, even when I launch programs, I do a lot of life coaching with specialization
Yep.
in nutrition, fitness, and mindset. I'm a neuro change practitioner. So I love
Yep.
the brain science of it all, but also fitness and nutrition are critical to really create the foundation, right, of health first. And
Absolutely. Yeah.
so for me, those aspects, when I launch a program, I'll often just test it,
Yep.
test the new venture, the new process or protocols, usually first with myself, maybe second with my wife. But then I'll
Yep.
open it up to closer friends or people within that inner circle within my online community and invite them to participate, to trial it out and see
Yeah.
if the results are similar. So rather than going at full scaling mode, with an idea, which is okay at times, but I mean, if you haven't tried the idea yet or tested to make sure there is a market for the idea, like an MVP, a minimum,
Yep.
valuable. What is that MVP? Sorry, minimum value proposition, or
Yep.
you know what I mean.
Yep.
Anyways,
Got it.
you need that, right? You need that. Well, at least
Absolutely.
I do, because I've tried it the other way before, and the results have matched.
Yeah.
So where
Right.
I thought it was the best thing on the planet, oh, this would be the best program ever. Everyone's going to love this.
Right.
Put it out there, and it's crickets, right? And it's like, well, no
Yeah.
one's really digging this, and the people that do it
Yep.
aren't getting the results that I thought they would. And
Right.
so those are some primary ones that I would like to leave people
Absolutely.
with.
Yeah. Mentorship and testing the waters,
Yeah.
really kind of working through a process, kind of figuring out where that need is, and that, are we adding value with what we're offering. I really like that, and I think that those are great. And I really also like that you emphasize the fact that a good mentor is going to push you and not always make you feel comfortable, because
Mm,
they are there to help you stretch and get outside your comfort zone. So
that's right.
I've experienced that in my own life, and I think of a mentor that I have right now, and some of the questions he's asked me. Now I didn't want to answer.
What was one
But,
of the more recent
uh,
ones? What
oh, I mean, I mean, this is thinking back a number of years ago.
mm,
I was talking about a difficult situation with an employee,
yeah.
and I knew the answer, and he really didn't. I was looking for him to tell me, but he asked me,
Yeah.
what do you need to do? And I knew the answer was that we had to end that relationship. But
Mhm.
it was just difficult to come to that conclusion. But a good mentor will help you get to the conclusions that you might not be feeling comfortable getting to yourself.
That's right.
So
Well said.
yeah. Now, second question in
Yeah.
regards to if I were to say, okay, you're handed $1 million today, no strings attached. What do you do with that and why?
Well, there's a couple things, but I'll focus it to one. There's a
Yep.
project I'm actually involved with now. It's a health tech startup, and
Okay.
it's really quite unique. And I've been. It was funny with what you just said about the mentor and that question, right, or guiding us to an
Yep.
answer. He actually shared something with me yesterday when we were on our call, and he's like, if our team wasn't close to breaking, we wouldn't be pushing ourselves hard enough.
Yeah.
From a standpoint, because anybody that's been involved in a startup, it's like everyone's bandwidth is challenged. Trust me, and everyone's
Right.
got multiple hats on, and we're trying to get things done, move things forward. And so, I've
Yep.
had an opportunity to be in some startups, but this one's moving really fast. But I
Okay.
know that with enough, if I was given $1 million, I would invest it into this company more so to one, proof of concept, but two, to
Yeah.
also scale. And because there's some
Yeah.
there's some very specific IP that
Yep.
I know can change the world. Here's the thing,
Absolutely.
and I'll just leave it at this. I believe everyone's entitled to health coaching. I believe that
Yeah.
everybody on this planet should have a health coach. They should have access to a health coach. Because I look at what I learned in school, and when it came to learning about health, about nutrition, about how to move my body, it was like this
Yeah.
much, this
Right.
much. And I'm like, well, gosh, the World Health Organization just put out a massive report saying that by 2035, over half the world population will be obese. I'm
Oh
like,
wow. Oh
now
man.
most people in my industry are like,
Disheartening.
woohoo. And I'm like, why? Because
Yeah.
job security, right? I guess we'll be needed.
Right.
We're not going anywhere. Our industry is not going to be replaced. But it just tells me that people are not educated on health and they don't
Yeah.
have the support. And this company's initiative is to build the most robust and interactive health AI
Yeah.
coach possible. So
Yeah.
that's what I would do if I was handed a check for $1 million. I would show the plan of how we're going to get there and how this
Yeah.
is going to change the world. That is what I would do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that the value of health and healthy living it exceeds what people realize too. I think
Mm,
you have your own personal story of having an autoimmune disease, which of
yeah.
course we won't have time to get into today, but you were able to take your life and health and fitness and making that such an important role in your life that
Mm,
you're not as impacted as you would be otherwise.
mm.
I mean, I think that's a big aspect of our lives, and I really value what you're saying, and I hope that we get to see that come to fruition.
Thank you. Me
100%.
too.
Absolutely.
It's gonna happen. It's gonna. You just wait. All right. We'll have a
Absolutely.
follow up conversation when we get our next round of seed. I'll
Absolutely.
reach out to you and let you know so we can have a party.
Of course. Let's do it. Let's do it.
Uh,
Now, if any of our guests want to reach out and just find out more about what you're doing, what's the best way for someone to connect with you?
well, my name's interesting, as Zach alluded to before. Dai is a Welsh name for David. Manuel is Portuguese, so Welsh and Portuguese. I'm Canadian. Don't worry about it, eh? No, but that, we live in a day and age where we have access to some great technology. I'm on all the social networks, but I'm
Okay.
most active on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. If you just
Yep.
type in my name, because it's so unique, it will come up like in the recommended search. As soon as you
Yep.
start typing DAI, my name pops up. Shoot me a DM. Say, oh, I heard you and Zach yammering on about this.
Yep.
Here's my thoughts. This is how I'm living my legend. Like, I just love connecting with people and having conversations. So that's the easiest way people can get a hold of me. Otherwise, go to my website, daimanuel.com, and lots of info. And I apologize in advance because it's a bit of a rabbit hole. I've got about 1,800 articles I've published since 2007. And it's all geared around helping people live their best life. And
Yeah.
I do know there's a lot to go through. So it is a rabbit hole. So my apologies if you get stuck.
Yeah. Well, they'll probably gain something from that. So
Yeah, I like to think that
there's
too. I like to think that too. Thanks, Zach.
there's a value added. So yeah, definitely reach out to Di on the social media channels, any of those, as well as check out his website at daimanuel.com. And like you said, if you want to speak some Canadian, he's a good guy to speak with. I appreciate the fact that you're a real individual that just puts it out there. I think you had stated that raw and real is how you like to live your life, and I appreciate that.
Oh, thanks, Zach. And listen, I got to say thank you to you as well. I've been going through a bunch of your past episodes, and I know I subscribe to the feeds now, your feeds, and I absolutely love the content you're throwing down. I
Well,
love it.
thank you.
It is much needed. Thank you for contributing to the opposite end of the scale. What I mean by that is, I look at media, I look at all the negative stuff, and I mean,
Yep.
it's not going anywhere. We have to offset that scale
Yeah,
with some positive, some reinforcing
absolutely.
messages that help and uplift. And I see you doing that so well. So thank you for allowing me to be a part of this today.
Thank you. And thank you for getting the word out there. So appreciate the time, and I look forward to a future conversation.
Whoop, whoop.
All
I'm
right.